I was a fool. I had no idea how to run this business, but I was just clouded by the success. And I said, let's go all in, man. Let's just go raise more capital, make this a nationwide brand. And every store we opened, we started losing money progressively. No other store made money. None of them. It was a Ponzi scheme because we kept raising more money to open more stores. And what we realized by 2007, there was no funding available because there was a Lehman crash around that time.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Confessions of a B2B Entrepreneur. And we have a banger for you today. We have Sid Jashnani, who has been in the entrepreneurship game for a very, very long time. His first venture was actually an accessory store based in India. First one was in Mumbai. That one didn't work so well, but then he's built over the last 16, 17 years a larger business called Momentum Texas. So we talk about his journey through creating that and then essentially stepping away because now most of his time is spent as a certified EOS implementer. So an epic story of entrepreneurship. And before we jump into this, we just have to give a quick shout out to Fame, the business that I frankly own and that produces this show. So if you like a show like this, please go to fame.so and request a proposal. Let's jump into this episode with Sid right now. Quick one for anyone hiring or scaling in 2026. Instead of spending thousands upfront on laptops, phones, tablets for new hires, Raylo Business lets you subscribe with flexible monthly payments. Keep your cash flow healthy for growth, free upgrades and next day delivery, and give your team the kit they need is how a lot of founders are handling tech procurement in 2026. Link in the show notes to check out Raylo. Sid, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you hosting me.
So we have a massive wealth of entrepreneurial experience that we're going to dig into. I'm very excited about the journey. But before we start, we have to understand, which I think is your first business venture, which was the women's accessories company that you built in India, 2025, I believe.
No, that was 2007 or 8, around that time.
A bit later, okay. Yeah. So was it the first one?
There's the second one. The first one was a children's baby furniture sort of business.
Yes, okay. Let's skip that one and go to the women's accessories one because you had how many stores?
We scaled to 17 stores at that time. 9 were cell phone and the rest were like these little shops in big department stores.
Makes sense. That to me sounds like, well, I would have absolutely no idea how to run a business like that. And it seems like for one of the first or the second ventures, it was like a chunky, not a risk, but like a big or ambitious, let's say. But how did it go?
It was super ambitious and it was a great idea. I mean, India in 2006 and 7 was booming, and 6, 7 is something I shouldn't say with children around. But the whole idea is India was booming at that time and retail was growing very fast. I had a previous retail venture, so I had some experience. Knew a lot of commercial brokers, a lot of real estate malls that were coming up. And I had a cousin in Bombay who was very well connected. And he decided to be an anchor investor in the business. And he set me up in one of the top malls in the most affluent area in Bombay.
And that was the first store?
That was the first store. And that was the most deceptive store, because it clouded my entire opinion about the retail industry.
Because it did really well.
Because it was brilliant. It's like opening a store in the most busiest area with the most affluent population who don't think twice before buying.
And the rates were good.
And the rates were brilliant. The lease was like negotiated to a level where it was just profitable. So that was wildly profitable. And we showed the numbers to people. People were like, wow, this is brilliant. And I was a fool. I had no idea how to run this business, but I was just clouded by the success. And I said, let's go all in, man. Let's just go raise more capital, make this a nationwide brand. And every store we opened, we started losing money progressively.
Everyone after the Mumbai one?
No other store made money. None of them. And except for this one, which kept the lights on, if I can say. And I think the biggest problem there was inventory that was a side effect of having stores not doing well. But I think retail is just about location and finding It's like, when you go to a Pret or an Itsu, they've really nailed down where they open stores. And even Gales now, which is the hottest kind of coffee chain here in London. And I was speaking to brokers here who say that, oh, if you have a Gales in the area, the property prices are slightly higher now. It's like, Waitrose a few years ago. And that's what retail's about, finding the right location. We were just signing any location that any mall developer was offering. And we kept expanding, thinking that, hey, let's just get to a particular scale and we'll be able to sell it.
Yeah.
And it was a Ponzi scheme because we kept raising more money to open more stores. And what we realized by 2007, there was no funding available because there was a Lehman crash around that time.
It was in the space of like 1 year, 18 months.
18 months, we scaled up. Incredible. With zero team that I could trust. We were just hiring random people walking in the door and giving them work to do. No management. If I were to look back at that, I would probably have a heart attack,
And how old were you then?
So I was 25, 26.
Wow, that's such a crazy story. And then did it blow up in the end?
Yeah, I went down the toilet literally, and it's embarrassing even today to face my family when I go and see them in Bombay because we had taken money from so many family members.
Oh, really?
And everyone reminds me of that situation. It's like, where's our money, And they laugh, they have a chuckle about it. But deep down, I know it hurt them at that time. It wasn't, good amounts of money, 20K from this guy, 30K from this guy. So a lot of angel funding. And we had an institutional funding as well. But I think they were really big, so they didn't care. It was a rounding error for them. But it was one of those periods where I was very disappointed after this happened. And I realized at that time that I could have obviously done a better job, but it was a crash landing sort of experience for me because it made me feel that I'm not ready for this. It made me feel that running a business is hard.
Because then after that, you did go and work for someone for a year.
Yeah.
But then that started the next thing, which I think has gone much better, still around today. So
yeah, so essentially after, so the brand was called Bling.
Really?
It's cool
Bling?
Yeah, Bling. It was this jewelry. And I was like, I was quite US inspired after studying there. So Bling Bling and Snoop Dogg were pretty cool back then. So and that was the name. And so yeah, after that, I was so essentially, I call it bankrupt because I had no money. Literally no money. Everything I had was pumped into the business. It was embarrassing to ask money from my family just to survive. And I was really lucky, and I kind of attribute that to the universe and God and my spirituality, that I was able to find someone who trusted me to give me a second chance to work for them. And yeah, I think turned my life around because one of the projects that they made me do, so it was a Munich-based company, and they were a consultancy, but a very niche sort of consultancy. And they sent me to South India to build Nokia Siemens, which was like one of the largest telco guys at that time, build their factory in India. They said, hey, you're the program manager for a 200 million euro investment in Chennai. And I was 27 at that time, and I was running a budget of 200 million, building that factory, which there's a lot of sort of, construction in India is quite challenging, as anywhere in the world. Lots of moving parts. Contractors from Finland, local contractors from India, all sorts of German and Finnish sort of, politics going on in the organization. But it was one of those experiences which I can never take away from me because I learned so much. And I got my confidence back because there I'm standing with the board of one of the biggest companies in the world and talking about progress in India. And they're all looking at me. It's like, okay, whatever Sid says is right. We trust him. And it's just lovely. And I think that's what kind of helped me get my confidence back. And what I discovered while we were building that facility, that all the extra low voltage stuff like the internet cables, optical fibers, cameras, audiovisual equipment, we had a tough time finding subcontractors to do a holistic job in that facility.
And subcontractors were going to buy that stuff and implement it.
Implement it and make sure it all works together. And we just had the hardest time. We got the best contractor in India to do it, subcontractor, and they messed up. And then they had to send someone from Germany to fix things. I was like, it shouldn't be that hard, man. I mean, it's just a bunch of audio, video, internet, it doesn't require too much skill set. And that's where my idea of momentum was born when I was working there. And I actually I set up a company and no idea about how to do this. But when I saw these guys do it, I was like, it's not rocket science, man. It's pretty straightforward. You just need a process.
So how did you then find the first client for Momentum?
That's an interesting story. My dad, he's like one of those people who's always ready to help. And he gets more excited than I do for businesses, especially my stupid ideas that I used to come up with. So I told him, hey, Dad, I mean, I saw this at Nokia Siemens. I think it's a great opportunity. He's like, I know 20, 30 people that I can speak to about this. And so he started calling people in his network. He's like, hey, my son does this. Do you have a building coming up? Do you have a building coming up? And he got me my first gig.
Really? You paid him commission, I assume?
No, I didn't pay him anything besides just my everlasting gratitude. I'm grateful to him. I love him because he's a very savvy business owner himself. And growing up, I've seen him run business with incredible integrity, patience, and love and abundance. And I think those values kind of carried on with me. And yeah, so he got me my first client. And, like those guys were asking me technical questions. When he came along to the meeting with me, he's like, just give the damn order, what is my son, So it was one of his mates. And they gave the order to me. And then I figured out how to get it done.
Can we fast forward? Because I know we then added a load of clients and the business got to X amount of revenue before there was any real system for running things. So can we fast forward to that point?
We grew organically and I hired people as business started coming in. And I was the chief cook and bottle washer doing everything. And I think big businesses just progress because we use common sense. A lot of people say that we are not process driven as entrepreneurs and we find process is bureaucracy. But deep down, I've figured out a process to sell the same thing repeatedly. That was a process. And then I figured out a way to deliver that repeatedly. Now I just needed to find the right people so they could run the processes. But I never knew this back then when I was doing it because it was all in my head. And so I think the first thing I started delegating was operations because I absolutely hated that because I didn't want to go to construction sites and stand there and it's just not fun, trust me, with the dust and all sorts of nonsense. And I think they called me a delicate baby. It's like, you can't take construction site, not strong enough. But it's funny. So I found an ops guy, brilliant, still with me, doing fabulous. Then sales was the next thing. And I think this is where I find even today, a lot of founders get stuck because they are the sales guys. And they're the ones, it's because of their aura, their gravitas that sales happen. And that was the hardest to kind of figure out to replace myself. And I think there was a bit of luck, a bit of, my prayer being answered or something. And I found someone who's just incredible, 100 times better than I am. And they're more proactive. I'm a bit more reactive. And at that time, it was the first time, I think around, we've already been a little more process driven. We're running meetings. I got exposed to EOS around 2014 and 15.
Okay. And so let's just do the timeline again. So you started Momentum maybe in
2009 officially, unofficially around 2008.
Got it. And so now we're in 2014. And so roughly what size of the business, if you're happy to share, revenue?
So 2014 or 15, we were about 4 to 5 million, I would say, in that space.
Yeah.
So doing okay and profitable and making money. And, with that came a lot of distractions.
And because you were the sole shareholder or maybe other employees?
Sole shareholder.
Okay, no, amazing.
So I was making good money and I got distracted, honestly, at that time. I bought an Audi, expensive car, and started investing money in real estate.
Okay, nice.
And took my eye off the ball. And we had 1 year which almost sank us because I took my eye off the ball.
Oh, really?
Yeah, lost the big picture and got busy with everything else besides work.
Okay, and then you discovered EOS.
Around that time, because I'd lost sight of the big picture, I was signing up to any course, any sort of seminar that was coming up. And one of these seminars took me to UAE or Dubai, and there was a Harvard Business School program there.
Nice.
about entrepreneurs running, growing, or scaling companies. And that's where I met a few people who were part of the program who spoke to me about EOS. They said, all this great stuff about strategy that you've heard, the only way to get it implemented is using a system called EOS. And I'm like, I've heard of it. I'd heard of Traction, but I wasn't much of a reader back then. And and when I read the book, I was like, this is pretty straightforward, man. I think another thing I must add that I was quite arrogant and I had a chip on my shoulder back then because I was doing well. I had made some money. And I felt that I can figure it out because, with money comes a lot of confidence, and with money also comes a lot of recklessness, if I can say. And I think I was a bit on the reckless side. And I thought that this is too simple. This is too easy. Give me complex stuff. I can figure this out very quickly. I gave it to my staff and they loved the meetings in EOS, which is the level 10 meetings. We started running those. For a change, I started showing up to those meetings and I started listening more about what's really happening in the business because they made me commit that, hey, you will come to these meetings because you don't come to most meetings now. And I said, fine, I can make a commitment, 52 meetings of the year, whether it doesn't matter what day it is, I will come. I did that for 1 year and I figured out that if I don't do something about my business, it's going to go down the toilet.
Got it. Okay. So EOS actually enabled you to spot the issues.
Yeah, I think EOS is nothing revolutionary or a magic pill. I think it's just the consistency and discipline that you build doing the basic stuff. It's like if you're running a business, you look at your numbers on a weekly basis. That's okay, how many calls have you made? How many tenders have we filled? How many negotiations we are in? How many new orders won? Which projects are a shit show? Which projects are doing well? I mean, though we had about 10, 15 numbers that we were tracking, that gave me like a complete health check about the company. And the first few months, it was depressing. It was like, what is going on, right? And then I had to kind of go deep down because there's complacency that had set in because there was no one monitoring people. And I had to kind of give them this shock again, like I call it a defibrillator moment, just like give them a little shock. And it's like, hey guys, we need to wake up and need to start delivering, And and I started realizing that running a company is not about abdicating responsibility. It's about setting up all the pieces, but still having the pulse to check in and making sure people are doing what they're supposed to do. And that was the flip in my head, that I can still be a little away from the ground and not be executing at the ground level, but still be in control of all the moving parts.
Nice.
And that was the beauty of EOS because it gave me an opportunity to look at every aspect of my business. And it only works if you have right people. If you have shit people, it doesn't work. So the first thing you have to do is find the right people.
And so where did the business get to after you implemented EOS?
With EOS implementation, I think we just got a little more consistent in our execution. And, I'm not saying EOS is the magic pill, but it's like one of those things that helped us. And what helped us was just favorable conditions, a lot of our competitors going out of business, and us starting to do more and more bigger value of work that made us qualify for bigger tenders and opportunities.
So like bigger construction projects.
Yeah, so we were typically working critical infrastructure or government infrastructure, which was hospitals, education, universities, schools. And India was growing and there are tons of new hospitals, railway stations, airports, and all sorts of big sort of businesses coming up. And everyone needs tech in a building. And so we automatically caught the right headwinds. We were capitalized well because this is an expensive business because you have to invest
in the
inventory, in the project before you start getting paid. So we just had enough capital to get into these big projects. And 2017, 18 is the period where I exited operationally fully. Because at that time, I had no choice, honestly. I think it was, I decided to move out of India. And my first stop was Dubai at that time. Because, Dubai is cool now in the UK. I hear lots of people moving to Dubai. So 2017 is when I moved to Dubai and I ran my company virtually from Dubai.
Still as CEO.
Well, I was CEO, but 2018, no longer CEO. 2017, still CEO while I was living in Dubai. And I was commuting every month to India, essentially. I was just flying down to India every month to run my meetings. Otherwise, it was virtual.
Presumably then you promoted someone internally to be CEO.
It was my first employee who took over.
Yes, I heard that story. So
he used to be a sales engineer at Siemens when he met me, and Siemens used to be a supplier to us even when I started Momentum. And so he was the one who would come to I used to work in a co-working space when I started in 2008. It was literally like a small cabin, and he would come in the cabin and spend time with me to work on the opportunities. And I used to always ask him, man, you guys working on such big opportunities, why are you spending so much time with me? He's like, I'm just fascinated by what you're trying to do by yourself, you know.
nice.
And he was my supplier for like a year and a half or so. And then I asked him, man, you must have someone in your network who can join me for, sales and just running the business. And if you can refer someone to me, I'd be really grateful. He said, why don't you hire me? I said, oh, come on, I can't afford you probably. And that was the conversation that led him to join me when we were nothing at that time. And essentially the two of us kind of built up this whole organization together. So yeah.
What made you decide that it was time for you to step back as CEO?
I think it was just not by choice, honestly. And I don't think I shared this with a lot of people, but 2017, my son living in Delhi had lots of respiratory issues. At that time, there was some pollution-related challenges living in Delhi. It's still, I think they're still trying to get the act together, but it's very challenging. And I was advised by the doctors that, hey, Delhi's probably not the best place to raise him because of his lungs. And he'd probably be better off with the cleaner environment.
Hence Dubai.
And Dubai was the easiest at that time because my wife was born and raised in Dubai, and she had a family there. And I was like, we'd have like a support structure. And so it was easy to kind of think of moving to Dubai. And Dubai is one of those places where they welcome everyone and they let you come as long as you have money. I always say that. The pinch of salt, but it's a great place to move to if you know what you're doing. And so that's what led us to move to Dubai. Yeah.
And so you step back as CEO. And then what I find really interesting is your next move, which was, I believe, to start other almost complementary businesses to Momentum. So can we dig into why you chose what to do after CEO?
What was interesting was all this time, and every contractor or sort of people who's in the trade or a system integrator today, or any business for that matter, is looking for a competitive advantage, right? And it's very difficult to find a competitive advantage in any industry, right? Brands like LVMH and all these guys just buy other brands because they're just trying to get market share. But what's their competitive advantage? Well, in the luxury market, it's different. Services, it's different. So for us as contractors, we were pricing ourselves down to be the lowest bidder in every opportunity because big contractors would work with the cheapest sort of price. They would say, hey, Sid, we love you. You do great work, but you need to match this price, which some other guy gave because we call it like a suicidal price, And so that was our challenge. And that's what led me to start. The thing is like, how do we get away from just quoting the lowest price? Where can we build competitive advantage? And in that journey, I met a guy called Vern Harnish. Vern runs a competing system called Scaling Up.
Yes.
And he's a brilliant guy. I love that guy. He's full of energy, respect him, credit where it's due, it's amazing. He was in one of those workshops where I was a participant and he was leading the workshop. And in a one-on-one, during one of the breaks, I asked him, I said, Vern, I'm struggling with this, man. I'm like, it's like the lowest bid, that's what matters. He's like, find a better business, man. Don't whine. And that's what kind of gave me this push. It's like, yeah, I've been whining about it. I've been complaining about it, but what am I doing about it? And that's what led me to start thinking of, can I just start producing the equipment that goes in our projects? And that's what kind of led me down this rabbit hole of creating complementary companies or investing in them and trying to get them up to a level where we kind of not 100%, but to a majority represent all the products that are put in system integration.
So I think they call that vertical integration, isn't it? Where you go and take this other thing that's kind of below you in that kind of.
I guess, all the smart guys, supply chain, they call it vertical integration in industries. And that's what we started doing, one piece at a time.
So what's an example of a piece of equipment that you went and either invested in or started a company to?
The simplest one was to do cabling, right? So like the cabling that is produced, which powers your internet, the fiber optics, which are put in a data center or in a rack. That was the simplest thing to do. And we started that.
So when you say you started that, you basically
organically started that business.
Like you built a factory that was going to create the cables, or you found a subcontractor?
Yeah, it was, no, we were always asset light at that time because we said, we don't have the money or the capability to build a factory, but we do know how to build a brand and how to position it for success. Because working with tons of American and foreign and German companies, I realized that they were good in quality, which was essentially, they had certifications. Right, some were listed in the UL Underwriters Lab in America. And I said, hey, if we get the same set of certifications, we should be able to compete because we meet the technical spec. And so that's what we did. We said, the only thing I'm going to focus on is work with factories who can meet the specification. And we found such factories all across the world. I found factories in China, in Taiwan, in Malaysia, and Southeast Asia, essentially. And we found one in France as well. And we started getting equipment from the same factories where the big boys were producing, because no one used to own too many factories. It's an asset-light world. Even iPhone's not made by Apple. It's Foxconn or someone else making it. And but then that's what we started doing, finding and identifying factories, getting it certified under our make and label, and positioning it to sell in the market.
And there was a separate brand to Momentum.
All separate brands and all run by leaders and co-founders. That's what I call them.
Got it. And so then for Momentum, they would get presumably at cost maybe.
Yeah, we would just get a competitive advantage because those companies are still run as product companies where they sell to other contractors or other system integrators too.
But we are with the markup, but Momentum get it.
I get to override how much Momentum or someone else made in that case. And especially if you're competing, we know what the prices are, so we could take a call in our pricing. And then obviously there's some infighting in a good way. That, why are we giving it so cheap to these guys? And it's good fun, it's good banter in our meetings,
And so how many of those brands exist at the moment?
So we are at 12 of such brands, trying to fulfill that ecosystem and also expanding outside of it. And the goal is, we have 15 companies, but the 3 are not related. 3 are, I call them shared services sort of organizations, which were born because they were supporting the other organizations.
Got it. So like HR or like...
Yeah, so HR is Recruito, which is something which I do right now, which is more an impact business, but that became a HR sort of outsourced people sort of firm, which would support whatever HR needs anyone would have internally. The second became an ERP implementation company, because every company runs on a little ERP. We use an open source ERP called Odoo. It's a Belgian-based company.
Yeah, I saw that recently.
Yeah, they've started advertising a lot. I think they're doing quite well. So all our companies use that ERP system. And so we hired engineers to configure it for us. So we just started selling that service. And there's one guy who used to be a HR manager earlier. He is the owner of that company, or co-owner. We just said, hey, you're really good at this. You became a champion for this. Why don't you just run this as a business, And
then which is the final of the 3?
The final of the 3 was, I think, probably the most fractured one today. And we're not getting anywhere with that, which is an insurance business.
Oh.
Yeah, because we just had this opportunity, because there's a lot of insurance that we have to buy for all our businesses. And this very enterprising guy came to us. He was one of our brokers. We would buy a lot of insurance from him. And he was like, I do so much of work, and I don't really get what I want out of this. I would love to start a business. And in the heat of the excitement, we said, go for it. We'll support you and start the business. Poor chap had some health issues, but that company is, I call it headless. That's why it's not getting anywhere. It's just servicing and supporting the internal business that we have. And we're just trying to find a leader who can run that and actually
sell it externally as well.
Yeah, and I would probably want to exit that very quickly because it's not core to us and doesn't excite me. Insurance doesn't excite me at all. So,
And so with the, let's say the 14 companies that have a head,
yeah.
are you the only one you're head of at the moment is Recruito?
Yeah, I'm only running Recruito. My hope is that it's only going to be end of or mid of July or end of, summer. And I would like to let go of that to a very competent person that I'm training right now.
Nice. Okay. And so then you're going to have 14 essentially founder CEOs.
Yeah.
Do they like report into you?
Not really. I mean, there's a board.
A board that sits across all.
Yes, a HoldCo essentially. And we just look at those numbers. I generally don't influence any decision making now, but any big sort of like we're looking at manufacturing, right? Because we've evolved now and we're thinking of building a shared manufacturing facility across few companies. And that's a separate business, which is contract manufacturing.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're evaluating that right now, which is very capital intensive. And I probably going to need to raise some capital for that. And so I'm actively involved in just the capital side of things. So we've got a proposal. We've got great people who will run that facility. I'm just trying to shore up some capital without giving crazy personal guarantees on it.
The 14 essentially CEOs, was there a common thread in how you found them? Like were they all internal from Momentum or internal from other places or?
Not internal from Momentum. These were all professionals working at some of the most top organizations in the world who felt that they were not going anywhere in those respective companies.
Great, but how do you like find them?
Well, they were all our suppliers in a way. They were all trusted people that we've interacted with for years. And they've listened to our complaints, our whining. They've been part of our projects. They've failed us. They've succeeded us. We've kind of been through the journey together. And that's how we identified them. And some have been proactive in approaching us that, hey, we want to do something like this. Do you think you can help us? And some we have said, like there are a couple of people there who were like brilliant at what they did. We said, why are you doing this, mate? I mean, why don't you start something of your own? And it took us a couple of years to convince them to come on board.
How do you incentivize them? Like, would they get equity or profit share on their individual business?
Our business model is pretty simple there. We just give 50% equity straight away. So you're an equal partner.
To the founder CEO.
And generally we have two people who come in a company, not just one founder. And it's like one's generally the salesperson and the other is the ops person. And we give them equal equity.
Okay, so it might be 25, 25, and then...
Yeah, and then 50 is held by a HoldCo, essentially.
Nice. And then the cash from that 50%, if it's not reinvested, will go to the HoldCo, and then you guys decide how to...
Yes, generally, yes.
Reinvest it.
And everyone is capitalized with some working capital. And we're still scrappy, bootstrap kind of organization. So there's not endless capital with us. So we say, hey guys, we literally can support this for like a few months. So let's get some numbers going. And so fortunately, touch wood, we've not had any of these companies are not being cash positive from the get-go, so.
And at the HoldCo level, have you taken on investors or you still the majority owner, I guess?
We don't even, I'm actually doing a podcast with another gentleman called Mick out of Finland or somewhere, I forget, did a great podcast and he pointed me to some ideas of how others have raised capital doing this. And we're not really interested in capital right now because we feel that, well, I have that independence right now, but with taking capital comes a lot of responsibility and reporting, but it also helps you grow faster, no doubt. So I'm torn right now, whether to go that route or to just stay happy where I am and maybe just incorporate. I have some ideas like for next year, like another company here or there, but obviously that needs to go to our board and they need to do the due diligence and then take a decision then.
Right now, can you give a sense of the size of the 15 in terms of like people or revenue?
If I were to kind of add up everything, it would be north of 70 million, I would say, like just from sales turnover. Knowing that some companies are very, high turnover, but less gross margin.
Yeah, maybe the cabling company.
Yeah, because it's commodity, copper and fiber. So the gross margins are very low, but then the volumes are quite high. So 70 might be a very skewed sort of figure. So no, I don't have that kind of money. But it's good to have a big top line because it really helps you get in the right discussions and rooms with banks and with people who are ready to finance some of our opportunities.
And roughly how many people?
I think across the group, we would be about 400 plus people. Yeah, but some of them are also just contracted, but contracted quite heavily because when you get a project, you deploy a lot of teams on the ground, and there are lots of freelancers and people that we hire for those projects.
How do you decide, like when the cash comes to HoldCo, you maybe don't have anything to invest. How do you decide whether to give it to one of the businesses or like take it out personally and buy Audis or whatever else?
I think after my experience in 2014, and where I almost lost everything again because of losing sight of the ball, I live a very frugal life. I have no materialistic aspirations, honestly. I don't even own a car. I lease a car, which is a Tesla, and that's just because from a tax perspective, it is quite generous, if I can say. It allows you to do that after paying the in-kind taxes. And I live in a not so palatial home, a very small sort of home. So yeah, I don't have any materialistic aspirations. And I think one thing that really inspires me is who I can help. How can I take someone who is brilliant at what they do and help them run like a company? Could be like a micro venture, or it could be something quite big as manufacturing that we're trying to do. I don't really take out the money for any materialistic purchases. I think the only thing I take out is for experiences and training and coaching. So I spend a lot of money there.
Yeah, we're going to get to this. So future plans, obviously, Recruiter, you're CEO probably until the summer. And then after that, you'll remain on the board, obviously, at the HoldCo level, and then make these decisions. But then you have all this other time, which I understand that you do a lot of training and coaching. So
absolutely. I think so, for me, these 5 things, it's like Ikigai, if you read the Japanese book about balance. And I think EOS has its own version of Ikigai, which is doing what you love with people that you love, making an impact or a difference in the community, and getting compensated appropriately for the work that you do, and also having enough time to pursue other passions. So these are the 5 things which kind of help you balance what you want from life. And for me, I find myself to be super happy and inspired when I'm teaching others. And I love doing that. And I obviously love doing that with people who value the time that I'm giving or value the knowledge that they're getting from that. And the more beautiful part is when they apply that knowledge and they get success. That's the impact that I feel I'm making in their lives. And and I get paid for doing that. And there are days like on Monday, I take my wife out for lunch middle of the day, and I don't have to answer to anyone.
And but to be specific about the coaching, you are a coach for EOS.
Yes.
But you also do work with EO.
Well, EO is and YPO now, so I'm part of both organizations. So EO and YPO both have this product called forums. And a forum is essentially a group of 6 to 8 founders who get together and meet once a month. A lot of people call it like a board of advisors or like peers, and some people call it a therapy session where you can just go get naked fast, not literally, but just kind of share what's on your mind without the fear of being judged. And I think that's also been a very transformational part of my journey, where I've been in groups with certain founders who really inspired me. And when I hear their stories and their journey, it just motivates me to just do better and more. So yeah, I think both EO and YPO are incredible networks for entrepreneurs who are just looking to, gets quite lonely as an entrepreneur, because when a lot of my friends were not entrepreneurs, and when I talk to them about business, they don't get it. And they don't carry the 24-hour kind of baggage that I did when I was starting out. I think EO and YPO are absolutely brilliant. There's a local UK only based organization as well called Helm. It was called the Supper Club in the past, which is also similar, and it's quite good as well, and highly recommended if you have a local sort of business. But yeah, all of these 3 operate with a similar sort of idea that you put together people in forums and moderate them so you get value out of each other's shared experiences.
And right now, entrepreneurs can pay you as part of EOS to go and coach them, or they go to EOS and do a course, and then you would be the instructor.
Yeah, I think the way EOS works is there are about 800 EOS implementers in the world, right? Primarily North America, because that's where EOS is the most popular. There are about 40 or 50 of us in Europe. And I'm exactly not sure, but probably a dozen or so in the UK. And so anyone who runs a business, typically, if you have anywhere between 10 to 250 people, that's the right target market. And you could hire me as an implementer or one of the other 12 people in our community to help you implement EOS.
Nice. I saw your webpage on EOS, so we'll link to that below.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And yeah, I love working with companies who are just trying to make a difference and there's some sort of tech behind it. One of the companies I work with, they make software which helps companies determine affordability, right? And great applications in retail, in real estate, and a few other industries. And I just love working because they're just amazing people. I love hanging out with them. I get inspired when I listen to their stories. And similarly, I work with like regular vanilla tech sort of organizations. It's not the work that they're doing, but it's just how they're doing it and how they're competing in a very super competitive market. And it's just inspiring to be in such a room where, I get a lot of my ideas from these guys, honestly, because I take something which someone's doing in this area and I apply it in my head to all the businesses that I'm thinking of or running. So for me, I'm grateful that I get paid for learning.
Yeah, exactly. Because it seems like you don't necessarily need the money, but you really enjoy it. And also you're getting learnings.
Absolutely. No, I do need the money because I feel worthless if I'm just spending my time not making anything. And sometimes it's my guilt that I'm not really contributing anything anymore. And that is worse and I think EOS just keeps me in the nice spot where I get compensated appropriately and also gives me enough time to spend with family and my other passions.
Sid, this has been an epic, it's been epic to learn. I think for me, like the thing that I think was the coolest move or I'm most impressed with is growing the momentum business, obviously, but then being able to step back and it continues to thrive, but then create these other companies that both strengthen momentum, but also can be like profitable in their own right. So I think that's an amazing step. So thank you so much for coming on.
Tom, thank you for hosting and very nostalgic when I speak all of this in a good way. I'm not going to cry or anything. I'm quite pleased with the journey, but yeah, there's a lot more to do and I'm excited about what lies ahead. And yeah, and I wish you all the best with your endeavors as well. So yeah.
Thank you. All right, team, what do we think? That was Sid. Epic journey of essentially elevating yourself out of business number one, and then using that, the leverage and the skills and the knowledge from business number one to create all the other businesses, and then elevating yourself from that as well. It's an epic story. Thank you, Sid, so much for coming on. If you enjoyed this episode, please go to Apple Podcasts, leave a rating or review, send me a screenshot. And if you do, and if I get it, then I'll give you a shout out in a future outro of the show. Thank you so much for listening.